All right, so today we're doing a deep dive into a day in the life of Tom. Just your average guy kind of juggling work and life and all that.
Sounds relatable.
Totally, right? And our source
Okay.
material for this is just this one podcast episode called A Day in the Life of Tom, The Morning Hustle and Evening Chill.
I like that title.
Yeah, it's catchy.
Hints at a lot.
It really does, right? I mean, are we going to find any surprises in his daily routine? Is Tom really as average as the podcast makes him seem? I guess that's what we're here to find out. What do you think?
Well, I'm interested to see how he deals with all the, just the demands of modern life. Like the episode title says, you've got that hustle of work, but you've also got the need for chill in the evening. It's like, how do you balance that?
Exactly. And that's something I think a lot of our listeners can relate to.
For sure.
So the episode starts with Tom's morning routine.
Okay.
And let's just say the snooze button gets a good workout.
Oh, no. How many times?
3. 3 hits before he finally drags himself out of bed. I don't know about you, but I am very familiar with that struggle.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic. That snooze button battle, it's like almost symbolic, Like it's our resistance to the day starting.
Totally. Clinging to those last few minutes of sleep.
Exactly.
So he finally makes it to the bathroom, splashes some water on his face, just the classic wake-up move, and then he gives his hair a very quick once-over.
Mm-hmm.
And the podcast host even commented on his, good enough attitude towards his appearance.
Interesting.
I thought so, too. What does that tell us about Tom?
Right. Like, is that just a time-saving thing, or is it something deeper? Like, maybe a conscious effort to avoid, the trap of perfectionism. We're always being pushed to strive for the ideal, right? So maybe that good enough approach is actually really freeing in a way.
Yeah. Choosing your battles. I like that perspective.
Yeah.
So breakfast time, Tom goes for, the classic cereal and milk combo. Simple, fast.
Got to fuel up for the day.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But just as he's about to dig in, ring, ring.
Oh, who is it?
It's his boss.
Oh, no. What a way to start the day.
Right. Already needing updates on some project.
Ugh, I hate when that happens.
And what does Tom do? He just immediately starts multitasking. Answering emails, talking on the phone, trying to shovel in his cereal.
Oh, wow. So he's one of those, huh? The master multitasker.
He makes it look easy, but is it really sustainable?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I get so stressed when I try to do too many things at once.
Yeah, multitasking is a tricky one. It might seem efficient on the surface, but studies actually show that it can lead to, less productivity in the long run and more stress, too.
So maybe Tom's multitasking skills aren't something to be admired, but more like a sign of the pressures he's facing,
Could be. It's definitely a sign of the times. Always on, always connected.
That's for sure. Well, speaking of pressure, let's talk about Tom's commute. Because, of course, no day in the life would be complete without a good old-fashioned traffic jam, right?
Oh, right. Gotta have that. The daily struggle.
And the episode really captures that frustration as Tom gets stuck in traffic. He's already running late for his first meeting. It just makes you think about, how we all deal with those unexpected wrenches in our plans.
Totally. We've all been there. Stuck in traffic, watching the minutes tick by. Ugh.
It's a test of our patience, for sure.
It really is.
Do you let the frustration get to you? Or do you, find ways to stay calm and just roll with it?
Right. I mean, that's a crucial skill these days, wouldn't you say? Just being able to stay composed when things don't go according to plan.
Absolutely. All right, so Tom finally makes it to work. And this is where the podcast really kicks into high gear. They call it the workday whirlwind.
Okay, so paint me a picture. What's this whirlwind like?
I mean, it's just nonstop. Emails, meetings, phone calls, back to back to back. It really gives you a sense of that, that fast-paced, high-energy environment.
And Tom's just thriving in it.
Seems like it. The podcast host even describes him as someone who, kind of gets energized by this constant stimulation, which, I don't know, makes me wonder, what kind of personality is drawn to that?
Right. And what about the potential downsides? We hear a lot about burnout these days, especially with hustle culture and everything.
Exactly. And the episode does mention Tom, relying on quick snacks and coffee to fuel his workday,
Mm-hmm.
which, I mean, that's pretty typical of that always on mentality, right?
Yeah. So is Tom pushing himself too hard? Or does he have a healthy balance? That's the question.
Right. Big question. And I think it's something we'll definitely need to explore further as we continue our deep dive into Tom's day.
It's almost like he's craving that constant connection.
Yeah, maybe. I wonder if it ever feels like too much, though.
Right. Like, when do you get a chance to just breathe?
Exactly. All right, so let's move on to the afternoon of Tom's workday. And the podcast host uses this great phrase, the workday whirlwind.
Uh-oh. It sounds intense.
It is. It's emails, it's meetings, it's deadlines. It's just nonstop.
Yeah.
And the episode does a really good job of capturing that feeling of just constant motion, that kind of high pressure environment.
And Tom's like totally in his element.
It seems like it. I mean, remember we were talking about how he seems drawn to that kind of constant stimulation.
Yeah.
I guess this is where that really comes through. But it makes me think, what's the long game here?
Yeah.
Like, is this sustainable?
That's a huge question, right? I mean, it's
Assume-
one thing to thrive in that kind of environment for a while, but can you keep that up forever?
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about hustle culture before.
Yeah.
So is that what this is? Like, is it all bad, or, are there some positives to this whole always on mentality?
Well, it's definitely a mixed bag. I mean, on the one hand, you have this incredible drive, this ambition, this focus on, getting things done.
Right.
But on the other hand, it can be so easy to get caught up in that to the point where, you're neglecting other parts of your life, your well-being, your relationships, all of that.
It's like, where's the line? How do you know if you're just, passionate about your work versus like caught in that hustle trap?
I think self-awareness is key.
Mm.
Really paying attention to how you're feeling, how you're reacting to things.
Right.
Like, are you energized by your work, or are you just drained? Are you neglecting other important parts of your life? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself.
And maybe even more importantly, are you working towards goals that actually matter to you? Or are you just kind of chasing, external validation, external success?
Exactly. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not doing things that are aligned with your own values, then what's it all for, really?
That's a great point. So I guess the question is, does Tom ever stop to ask himself these questions? Or is he just kind of, on autopilot, just going through the motions, driven by that external pressure?
I mean, we don't get that level of insight from the podcast episode, but it's definitely something to think about. Are we all just kind of sleepwalking through our lives, reacting to things instead of actually choosing our path?
Yeah, big questions. Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about the transition from Tom's workday to his evening.
Mm-hmm.
And the podcast really emphasizes this shift in energy as he gets home. He kicks off his shoes, puts on comfy clothes, grabs some snacks. It's like he's shedding that workday stress.
Interesting, like a ritual.
Right. Like a very deliberate attempt to create some kind of separation, between work life and home life. Even though, remember how his boss called him during breakfast?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So it's not a perfect separation, but it's still interesting that he makes that effort.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like, even if the boundaries are blurry, he's still trying to create some kind of distinction,
Yeah, I like that. Makes me think about like my own routine. Do I have those things, those little rituals that help me shift gears? Or am I just kind of carrying that work stress with me, throughout the evening?
It's worth considering. I mean, those little acts of self-care can make a big difference, I think. It's about, creating that psychological safety, giving yourself permission to actually relax and let go of the day.
Absolutely. And, even with those efforts, even with those rituals, it's not like Tom's evening is completely free from interruptions.
Oh, right. What was it his mom called?
Yep. So it's like this constant push and pull. He
Right.
wants to chill, he wants to relax, but he also wants to connect with the people in his life.
And that's the challenge, isn't it? Finding that balance.
Right. Like, how much solitude do you need? How much connection do you need? And how do you make space for both of those things? Especially when, it seems like Tom's always kind of reacting to things
Hmm.
instead of like actively choosing how he spends his time.
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to know if he ever like actually schedules in time for himself, like, to do things that he enjoys just for the sake of doing them. Or is he always just responding to, the demands of work, the demands of his friends, the demands of his family?
And this brings us back to that good enough attitude that we were talking about earlier.
Hmm.
You know, maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's like a coping mechanism.
Interesting. How so?
Well, I'm thinking, maybe it's a way for him to protect himself from feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah.
right? Like if he doesn't have to be perfect at everything, if he can just be good enough, then maybe that takes some of the pressure off.
I see what you mean. It's like he's choosing his battles. He's saying, okay, I'm going to put my energy into these things that are really important to me, but I'm not going to sweat the small stuff.
Exactly. And, I think there's a lesson in there for all of us. Like, it's okay to not be perfect at everything. You don't have to be the best at everything. And maybe, just maybe, by letting go of that need for perfection, we can actually create more space for, you know, for joy, for connection, for the things that truly matter.
I love that. And I think that's a perfect segue into the last part of Tom's day, his bedtime routine.
Yeah, how does he unwind after all of that? We'll find out after the break. Welcome back to the show. It's time to wrap up our deep dive into a day in the life of Tom. We've explored his morning routine, that crazy workday whirlwind, and even got a glimpse of his attempts at relaxation in the evening.
Yeah. It's been quite a journey. I mean, on the surface his day seems pretty normal, right? Like a lot of people can probably relate to those same kinds of struggles.
Totally. But, even in the ordinary, I think there are these hidden depths, these little things that make you think about, the bigger picture.
Absolutely. And that's what we're here for, right? To kind of dig below the surface and see what we can learn from someone else's experience.
So as we get to the very end of Tom's day, the podcast episode,
Hmm.
talks about how he's obviously exhausted, but he also has this sense of accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me wonder, you know, if- is that a genuine feeling, or is it more like just relief that the day is finally over?
It's a good question. I mean, is he satisfied with how he spent his time? Or is there this part of him that's thinking, okay, I made it through another day, but like, what was it all for?
Right. Like that's the big question, isn't it? What does make a life feel fulfilling? Is it just about, checking things off a to-do list, achieving certain milestones, or is it something more?
I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about, aligning your actions with your values. Like, it's great to accomplish things, it's great to be productive, but if those things aren't meaningful to you on a deeper level, then, what's the point?
So, how do we know if we're on the right track? I mean, Tom's day shows us that, he values hard work, he values connecting with his family and friends, and he values, those moments of relaxation, even if they're short-lived. But is he prioritizing those things in a way that actually leads to fulfillment?
That's the challenge, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, these are my values, but it's another thing to actually put them into practice, to make choices that reflect those values on a daily
And
basis.
sometimes that means saying no to things.
Right.
Like, even if they seem important, even if they seem like something you should be doing, you have to be willing to set boundaries and protect your time and energy for the things that truly matter to you.
Absolutely. And I think that brings us back to Tom's good enough attitude.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's like his way of saying, I'm not going to try to be perfect at everything. I'm going to focus on what's important and let the rest go.
Right. Like, it's not about giving up or being lazy. It's about being intentional with your energy. And, I think there's something really powerful in that, like giving yourself permission to not be perfect. Because, I mean, let's be honest, none of us are.
Not even close.
So maybe by embracing that, by embracing our imperfections, we can actually create more space for joy, for creativity, for connection, for all the things that make life, truly worth living.
I love that. And I think that's a great message to end on because, at the end of the day, it's not about achieving some kind of perfect balance. It's about making conscious choices. It's about being kind to ourselves. And it's about, finding those moments of joy and meaning amidst the chaos.
So to all our listeners out there, as you go about your day, as you navigate your own unique version of the workday whirlwind, remember that it's okay to not have it all figured out.
Right. You don't have to have all the answers.
Just keep asking the questions, keep exploring, keep learning. And, most importantly, don't forget to take care of yourselves.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, keep diving deep.